Welcome to the Fishbowl Radio, everybody. My name is Chief here, and thank you for tuning in to me on this lovely Friday morning. I'll be the only one doing the show here today. Juicy's got the day off, or he'll probably end up joining us next week. So, a couple of things I want to talk about today is the LSU versus Clemson National Championship game. Billy Napier, Louisiana's head football coach, is not going to Mississippi State, and we're going to talk about other possible destinations for Billy Napier himself. The Saints lost to the Vikings. We're going to cover that as well. And Louisiana's big win in the Lending Tree Bowl. And Louisiana's men's basketball team picked up the win over App State this past weekend. And they had won. Let's see. The women won last night, and the men got shellacked yesterday in a loss over, let's see, it's game day, Georgia State. So, first of all, we're going to talk about the big elephant in the room. Obvious thing here is LSU versus Clemson. Now, Clemson has a running back that is from Jennings, Louisiana, and people know Travis Etienne. I can never say his name right. And Trevor Lawrence, he got the spotlight. He was a Heisman candidate running for Clemson. He's a pretty good quarterback. He's only a sophomore this year, ladies and gentlemen. So he's going to obviously improve if he decides to. He can't leave just yet. He has to wait another year. With just men's basketball to be a whole other different conversation, because you leave after a freshman year in men's basketball. But I do think you should stay in college for at least 2 years. I think they should have some kind of paying system for them to get paid. They're working on that, the whole 9 yards of their maybe get their jersey sales. That's a whole other topic for a whole other day. I'm not going to get too much into that there. But I'm going to talk about LSU versus Clemson. So who do I think has the edge in this game? We're going to look down at offense, defense, special teams on each teams here. Last year's test for Clemson was against Alabama's offense, was a very high bar for them to meet during that national championship game. But thanks to an all-time great defensive lineman to go with 2 NFL corners on the outside, and the emerging Isaiah Simmons, this LSU offense, they're loaded. They have a great passing game, the best in the country, you could say. Alabama was scary last year. Their RPO game was so dangerous because guys were taking slants to the house routinely. LSU is scarier because of all their plays they make against what appears to be good coverage or off of a Burrow scramble. Joe Burrow is so good at extending plays. So Clemson's defense is going to have to find a way to keep him within the pocket and get pressure on him. Any quarterback that is really under pressure a lot for a whole entire game will eventually make a mistake. It might come at a very key point of the game, but we're going to have to see how Clemson, what their strategy is. Do you blitz Burrow, or do you play back zone coverage and hopefully try to get a 4-man rush on him? That'd be the most ideal thing, I think, for Clemson, to get a 4-man rush onto Joe Burrow to be able to play, to get him, knock him off his timing with his receivers, such as Justin Jefferson. It's going to be interesting. Burrow is a gunslinger. He has been on a hot streak. He will take some chances with his wideouts. If he throws a 50-50 ball, it turns into a 70-30 because his receivers are so athletic on the outside that they're able to get a higher jump and pinpoint the ball in the air. But will he take chances and trust his wide receivers? And the Tigers must not miss when they have a shot at a pick. Clemson needs to get in there. If they have a shot at an interception, they better make sure they take it. Clemson really should have had 4 interceptions with 2 possible pick sixes against Ohio State. Instead of the 2 they got, we all know how important the Terrell pick six was in setting the tone in last year's title game, and a similar play would do the same this time. So who I think has the edge here? They say defense wins championships here. Who I think has the edge between LSU's offense and Clemson's defense? I mean, they lost a good bit of people on defense this last year. So it's going to come up to, like, they played well against Ohio State, holding them to, under 30 points, which is very impressive for Clemson to do. So what I believe is, I think LSU's offense has an edge. Not much, but just a little bit enough to get them over the hump here. Because I think LSU's receivers will win those 50-50 balls in the air because they're going to take shots downfield because LSU's receivers are deep threats and they can get down the field really quickly. And you've seen what they did to Oklahoma. But, Oklahoma shouldn't even been in that fourth spot if we're taking the four best teams in the country. Oklahoma wasn't the fourth best team in the country, and they got shellacked around the field. I'm not going to say much more on that. If y'all watch the game, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Clemson, but I do think Clemson might have something for LSU this game. I would not be shocked if Clemson beat LSU in this game here. I think it's going to be a really, really close game. I don't think it's going to be a blowout like we saw against Oklahoma. Some people I've talked to some people around here in the Lafayette area, and they say LSU is going to win by 14 points. I don't see that happening because Clemson feels disrespected. This whole entire year, they felt disrespected because the common argument against Clemson has been they haven't played anybody. And if you are somebody on that football team and you're constantly being told all year you haven't played anybody, y'all are not that good as y'all were last year, and you're the defending national champion, you're going to take that to heart and you're going to take it out on the field and prove what you're worth. You're going to give it 110% because you hey, I feel disrespected. I'm going to go out there and do what I do best and prove all these people wrong because this game isn't going to be as close as... this game isn't... let me rephrase that. This game is going to be closer than a lot of people think. I think the last point spread I saw was 5.5 points, which that half-point spread is always kind of like baloney. It's going to be a close one. Let's see here. Special teams. I'll start off with a tip of the cap to the often maligned Will Spires. He came through with the best performance of his career when Clemson needed most versus Ohio State. Helping to keep the Buckeyes in poor field position most of the night, getting a punt off versus a heavy rush, and drawing a roughing penalty was another highlight moment. Unfortunately, B.T. Potter missed his only field goal attempt and questioned Linger about how clutch he should be if it came down to it. Believe me, I was thinking hard about that miss as Ohio State mounted his final drive of the game, down 6 instead of 9, which would have iced the game for Clemson. Because you have to... I think Cade York... I think he's a better kicker than B.T. Potter. I think LSU does have an edge in the special teams category. Even though, because it's... A punter can only help you out so much. Because if your defense is staying on that field a long period of time, Edwards Clare for LSU should be back for this game. I've been seeing a lot of reports saying that he's running around and doing different things with LSU's practice team. So I think he'll be ready to go come Monday night in New Orleans. So if I was Clemson, you probably should have expected that. But I think it'll be really tough to stop. I think special team-wise, I think LSU has the advantage there. Defensively, I still don't trust LSU's defense. They've played really well, but against an offense like Clemson, I think this might end up turning into a shootout because here's the thing. Clemson has a lot of weapons on their team, on their offensive side of the ball. They have a great running back, Etienne from Jennings, Louisiana, like I mentioned earlier in the broadcast. And he'll put a lot of pressure on the LSU defense because you're going to load the box to stop him. Then you got their Clemson's wide receivers on the outside for Clemson as well. And it's going to be a tough one. It's really going to be there. Let's see. T. Higgins and Justin Ross are who they're going to have to target. And it's going to get them open. I think they might be close to 100% for this game. I know they've had injuries this year, but it's going to be tough on them. But if they're forced into a shootout, I mean, they have Amari Rodgers, okay? And he came up with a huge play late in the Fiesta Bowl. Well, Braden Galloway wasn't a factor as a receiver. Plus, his athleticism was a big on blocks. So, I mean, LSU is going to try to hold up in man coverage on the perimeter. So these one-on-one matchups the Tigers crave will be there. We all know Ross and Higgins made the big-time plays in last year's title run when given those one-on-ones. Clemson will likely need an encore of that on Monday night if they play. Now, I think they will play because of the national championship game. But we'll see how that goes. I mean, they've had time to rest since the semifinal game 2 weeks ago. So everybody that's kind of been beat up and hurt. I mean, who isn't hurt at this point in the season with their players? It gets real tough toward the end of the season. So, I think when it's all said and done, I do think LSU is going to win this football game. But is it going to be a shootout is the question I want to know. It could very well be one. I think LSU's defense gets one more stop than Clemson's defense gets. So if I have to make a final prediction of a score, LSU 38, Clemson 35 is what I'm going to say here on the Fishbowl Radio. So I'm recorded in saying that LSU 38, Clemson 35 is my pick for the national championship game. Alright, moving on now. Let's talk about the Louisiana Raging Cajuns a little bit. Particularly their head coach, Billy Napier, declining the Mississippi State head coaching job. Okay. Since then, Mississippi State has went on to hire another Washington State's head coach, Michael Leach. So, what other areas could Billy Napier possibly show up on the radar? The one at Baylor, I've heard about Baylor, and maybe even Washington State, but I don't think Washington State's really going to go for Billy Napier. I think they'll try to get someone that's a little bit more proven at this point, because let's be honest, I mean, they look at how well you do against your peers. Is that the number one selling thing you can to your school, how well you do against your own peers in your conference? And so far by this point, he's pretty much done very well against his peers in conference, making it to the conference championship game the last 2 years. But as far as this year goes, I don't see Billy Napier going anywhere for 2020. I think he'll be Louisiana's head coach for the next year. I don't see him, like he mentioned something in the press conference I think a lot of people are kind of overlooking. He said this, well, we kind of built the plane a little bit. We want to drive it around a bit. Like you buy a brand new car, you don't want to just you don't want to drive it for a couple of months and then give it up. I mean, maybe some people do, but a majority of people want to stay in the car a little bit because you built up the car. Let's say if you took out the engine and you put a brand spanking new engine in it, you put brand new tires, you did all kind of stuff to this car. Okay, you put like a new transmission in it, and you really built it up from the ground up. There's a sense of pride in building something that you've built. It's a symbolic thing, like, oh, I built this and I brought this into the world. It's like you being with pride when a kid does something really well, like your child, your very own child does something really well. You get a bit of a sense of pride as a parent if you see them doing really well. So he said that he wants to drive around the plane a little bit since he built it. So does that mean he's going to 2021? We don't know. How long does he want to stay here in Louisiana? Louisiana did extend his contract through 2025. Now, it's going to be a Power 5 going to come calling for they could buy it out with a Power 5 contract. But it's still like you still got that price really high. I don't think they will. I don't think you're going to have a lot invested. You're going to have to know that you want this guy to be your coach definitively. There's got to be no hesitation at all if you're a Power 5 team going for Billy Napier. Do I think Billy Napier will be the head coach of Louisiana in 2020? I think he will be. I think Billy Napier will be the head coach of Louisiana in 2020. 2021, we'll have to see how they do in 2020. If they win that Sun Belt Championship, which they've been flirting with the last 2 years, they say the third time's the charm. We'll see if he can get it done against, more than likely, App State in the championship game. But there's also another point here. Billy Napier has not beaten App State in a game yet. They've played, 4 times so far, and Billy Napier has lost all 4 games. Now, this next year team coming up, I think it will be the best. I think Billy Napier will be his team. This Louisiana Raging Cajun team coming up will probably be the best in the history of the program. They're losing some people, but the backups they have for this year played a significant time this year. There's going to be some emerging people here. I think Peter LeBlanc will have a huge 2020 campaign. I think he'll be like a Jamarcus Bradley was for them. I think he'll have his breakout year like Bradley did in 2016. So, we will see what happens here. I think it's going to be a big year for the Louisiana Raging Cajuns. Now, staying on the Cajuns, they won the Lending Tree Bowl, which picked up their 11th win of the year over Miami, Ohio. The Raging Cajuns did a really good job against them. They had, I thought it was going to be a closer game because they got down to that goal line, Miami, Ohio, then they had a bad snap, which ended up sealing the deal for the Cajuns. The Cajuns ended up winning that game against Miami, Ohio, 27-17. So, Levi Lewis ended up winning game MVP. So yeah, that's it. That was it completely. Miami, Ohio. It's going to be really important for them. Miami, Ohio. The win over the Cajuns had on Miami, Ohio was a very big win for them. And like I said earlier in this broadcast, that I thought the Cajuns were going to have their best year next year coming up in 2020. So, yeah, I got people constantly texting me. Don't want to leave me alone today, boys and girls. But, okay. I was wondering what that was. But anyway, back to what I was saying. The Cajuns are won the Lending Tree Bowl, which was their first bowl win since 2014. Levi Lewis won offensive MVP for the game. So they're going to have Lewis coming back. Elijah Mitchell is going to be there, and Trey Regas. So they're going to have 2 of their 3 leading rushers. The only person that's leaving out that backfield is Raymond Kale. He'll be gone for 2020 season. He's graduated, so he's already going to be out of there. So what's going to happen with the Raging Cajuns of next year? They got a lot of their offensive core coming back. And they got some change on the offensive line. Cole Prudhomme, will he be the center, or will they move him over to a different position? There's a lot of different spots. They're going to have to work out that offensive line because they're losing 2 guys on the offensive line. Robert Hunt is an All-American that they're going to be losing as well. So who takes over his spot? We're not going to dig too deep on that, but I think that Lending Tree Bowl win was really huge for the Cajuns in terms of setting up their program for the future, because they'll probably get better recruits. I think people really want to see if Napier could win a big game, and he did win a big game. It was a bowl game. Because so far, So far, he hasn't really done any of that. Winning a big game yet. He hadn't won the Sun Belt championship game. He lost the Cure Bowl last year. I think that's why some of these programs were kind of hesitant to give him a head coaching job offer, because he hasn't really proven himself yet. But now that he's got that bowl win, if he gets a Power 5 win, if he beats Missouri next year, which the Cajuns are slanted to play Missouri next year, if he beats Missouri on the road at Mizzou, y'all be careful, because he's going to definitely be on someone's radar at that point. I think he'll be gone by that point, because that's like, yep, I've seen everything I need to know. He took Louisiana for a win against a P5 school, which Louisiana hasn't. Let's see. They brought him close a couple of times, but he hasn't done that yet. Mark Hudspeth came really close against Florida. It didn't work out. And now he's coaching at Austin Peay. So, we will see how all that goes in regards to that. So now, the next topic I want to cover is the Saints lost to the Vikings. So we ran a poll on our Facebook page, and this is the results we got from it. Let's see if I can pull it up here real quick. Like, yes, no, maybe so. You know, it's like, let's see. So, we had a poll that we asked, should the Saints get rid of Drew Brees? Like, Brees looked old during that game against the Vikings, but a lot of people want to put the blame on Drew Brees, but it ain't really all Drew Brees' fault, honestly, because your offensive line has to protect you, and they really didn't protect him well that game. But Brees did make big mistakes in that game. He threw an interception, and he lost a fumble. I think that fumble was really the turning point in him losing that game at that point. But the Saints would have won if Will Lutz would have made that field goal toward the end of the first half of the game, which would have put them up by, they would have had a 3-point lead at that end part of the game. So the poll that we asked during this offseason, should the New Orleans Saints get rid of Drew Brees? We had a 29% say yes and a 71% say no. So, in regards to that poll, I asked that question to see how people were thinking out there and what was their perception of the Saints. I do think the Saints should hold on to Drew Brees for at least one more year. But here's the kicker with this. You have three players. They have three players on as their quarterbacks that are all going to be free agents. You got Taysom Hill, who's going to be a restricted free agent, and Teddy Bridgewater and Drew Brees being unrestricted free agents. So I say Taysom Hill is going to be back next year for a quarterback for the Saints. Bridgewater might actually leave if Brees comes back next year, if he decides, like, you know what, I've had enough. But I think Brees he's gonna have to try to max his contract. They got to work all that contract stuff out before we even know who's staying, who's going. It's still early. Sure, there'll be talks about the Saints everywhere else. If they resign, if they don't resign, if they release somebody. So but here's a question for the Saints here. I say NFL teams got about 5 years of a shot of winning a Super Bowl if you're a contender. Unless you could figure out a way, because like you see, like, the Seahawks used to be the team. Like, you knew Russell Wilson and Marshawn Lynch and they were going to get to that Super Bowl. They got there with a really good defense. But then, once that started in 2010, really, when they beat the Saints on the Beastquake run. So, and they ended about, let's say, 2014 was their last year, I think, going for that Super Bowl. So 4 to 5 years. Sometimes you'll get teams that have a blink, and they're there, and they're really good for a year, and that's it. You got, that's what happened with the 49ers with Colin Kaepernick. Remember, they played the Ravens in that Super Bowl. And then you have the Carolina Panthers went to the Super Bowl, and they lost against the Broncos. But you see, the Broncos were still part of that 5-year gap. Peyton Manning wasn't what he was, but that defense carried him. So, here's the thing. Should they go to a 2-quarterback system is what I want to know. If you're a New Orleans Saints, should the Saints use a 2-quarterback system, keeping Bridgewater there with Breeze? Which is very interesting because Breeze played good in some games, but there are some games he just came out real flat. He didn't really do much. Is it a sign of Breeze getting older and a thing of things to come, or should the Saints move on with their future? I see Breeze staying another year. I think he really wants to win another Super Bowl, and I think that's why it came out. But I do think Breeze missed his shot in 2018. Now, do I think the Saints were robbed during that NFC Championship game? I do believe so, because that call should have been made at that point. Like, there was no reason not to make that call, because if the Saints should have ran the ball, burn out time on the clock. That's one thing that would bother me about Sean Payton. He doesn't know how to manage a game clock very well. I don't think he knows. I do think coaching does get in the way of some of these turn of events of these games. And I think Sean Payton has nothing to look at but himself in the mirror when he makes those calls. But I think the window's ticking. I mean, not the window is ticking. The clock is ticking on the Saints winning another Super Bowl with Drew Brees in it. Like, it's there. Like, we're almost hitting midnight at this point. I think, like Brees says, he thinks he could play till he's 45 years old. That father time will determine if that is correct. Because Brees got injured this past year with his thumb, kept him out a couple of games. But should they keep Bridgewater there? I wonder if they're going to even keep Bridgewater there for the long term. It's a really good question to ask. So, we don't know. Not a lot of people know what is going on right now. So, we will see in the future with that. So, the Raging Cajun men's basketball team picked up a win against App State, beating the Mountaineers, but they ended up losing to Georgia State 90-52 yesterday. The Cajuns were down in the first half 47-19. The Raging Cajun men's basketball team this year haven't been doing really well at all. They have a 7-10 record so far this year. They beat App State 81-73. App State had a 9-7 record. So for the last 5 games, this is how they went for the Raging Cajun men's basketball team. They had a loss. They won. They won against Troy. They lost against South Alabama by 3 points. And UC Santa Barbara, they lost to them as well. So now, in terms of the Sun Belt Conference standings right now, Cajuns are currently toward the bottom. They're 2-4 in conference, 7-10 overall, 5-3 at home, and 1-6 away. So, is it time to get rid of Bob Marlin? Is the question I want to ask for that, because you had a team that was really good for the last 2 years, and it's not really looking that way. Now, the Cajuns have some injuries on their team, and I'm sure that might be playing a factor in what is going on. So, we'll see how all that goes. The Cajuns' best win so far this year looks like to be trying to find that signature win. I really don't have a really good one. App State's kind of let's see. They're not really good as a basketball program. App State looks like their best win so far this year in conference. and that's not saying much because they're 3-3, only 2 spots higher than the Cajuns right now. UTSA is not doing good. UL Monroe is not doing good, and Texas State ain't doing good at all either. The Arkansas Little Rock is leading the conference at 11-6. So the Cajuns are going to have to figure out ways to get better in terms of that. But yeah, that's all I got to say about the men's basketball team. Got to pick up the pace to make it in March. Not sitting too good right now. So, in closing, I think we had a pretty good episode here today. Talked about a lot of different things. But, I mean, the Saints defense should have stepped up more. But, I mean, they got gassed. They were on the field for so long because the offense couldn't sustain drives. Michael Thomas looked pedestrian during that game. Alvin Kamara didn't do anything too much. But the one thing I think the Saints needed to do during that game was run the football more. If they would have ran the football more, because Latavius Murray had about 4 or 5 yards per carry. And they didn't even give him the ball. If you go look at the stats, I was like, this guy's running 5 yards a carry. You got to continue running these guys if they're getting that much yardage. They didn't run up that game, so I think the game plan kind of messed them up in terms of that. So, we will see. Thank y'all all for tuning in to the Fishbowl Radio. I will see y'all next week. I hope y'all had a great holiday season. We will be back, though. Hope y'all have a great weekend. I am out. Signing off for the Fishbowl Radio. My name is Chief. Have a great weekend, everybody. And stay safe with the storms coming in. And that'll be it.